it's Angie from Canterbury Trails Farm, and I bought a thing. What is this? It's an Edwardian 1910 white cotton dress, and it is spectacular. I was so excited when it came. I went back and forth. Do I want to open it or do I want to film me opening? I knew what I was getting because I bought it on eBay, and I was so ecstatic about winning this dress, and I can't wait to restore it. Let me show you this dress. This dress is amazing. First of all, when I was really examining it, and I'll try to do some close-ups here, it's sewn on the machine and it's handmade. It's homemade, let me put it that way. It's not from a store. Somebody made this. In fact, there's been alterations. There were these little pleats that were up here. We also had them down here on the skirt, and they've all been let out, which makes me think that maybe a younger girl had it at one point or something, and this would have been worn with a corset. In the Edwardian period, the skirts got a little bit shorter to about the ankles, and so they could show off their boots. The Edwardian period was from 1901 to 1910. It began when Queen Victoria died. So the Victorian period was from early 1800s until 1901. And then her son, Prince Edward, took over. So that's the Edwardian period. A lot of people like to use the Victorian period as a whole, lump anything old-fashioned into it. But 1901 to 1910 was the Edwardian period. And the skirts got a lot shorter, the dresses got a lot simpler, and they really like to show off their fancy boots. So a lot of times the dresses were like walking length. They would cut off about the ankles. This dress had a few surprises. One of the surprises was the hidden panel. It's just right here, and it goes down to here. I don't want to try it. It's very delicate, so I don't want to take, but there's hooks and eyes in here. My speculation is that this was a woman who was breastfeeding, and there is no other way to take off, to access your bits here because the dress closes in the back. So here's what I'm thinking. She had this dress prior to pregnancy, and that's why it was slimmer fit, and she had all these little pin tucks in the skirt. And then she had a baby, and she gained some weight, like we all do, and so she had let these pin tucks out of the skirt, and then she went in to the bodice in the front panel, and you can almost tell that it was, they've added a little bit of fabric here in order to make it like she's added a strip of fabric along each side to give it a little bit of room so she could fold it under and pin it with hooks and eyes. And there's no other real explanation for that panel to be there but that, as far as I can figure out. There would be no, it's not like a sleeve where you would take a sleeve off and change sleeves. It's not in the belt like you would, put different belt or different girdle, or like girdle by meaning like a belt ribbon type section. So because it's just right here, if you had a corset on, it would be, perfect access to just reach in there and pull it through this hole. The pin tucks are by machine. What I really loved about this dress, first of all, look at the very delicate, there's little delicate lace on the trim, and this is like a insertion lace. That was probably store-bought and then put on. All the embroidery is done by hand. There are just a very few holes here and there that I'm going to have to fit. You can see all the hand, it's all hand embroidered, it's not machine. It's not perfect, so there's a few that are a little bit wobblier and they start at different places, so it's very much handmade. The inside of this dress, it's very soiled at the hem, especially at the back of the hem where you would expect it to be because of walking. So the whole dress is constructed with French seams. If you've watched some of my videos, I think of the apron video, I showed how to do French seams, and that was a very wonderful way of enclosing all of your raw edges of your fabric inside the seam so nothing unravels. And because this is such a fine, lightweight cotton, that would be very important because it probably would ravel in the wash. So all of the seams, except for this very front panel that's been put in here, which is partially pinked and then partially sewn in. Some of it's done by hand, so it looks like maybe it was repaired. If you didn't have a lot of money, you had to make your dress work. And a lot of dresses were, when they were made and sewn, you'll find in some antique, you'll find a lot of extra fabric left in the dress. And sometimes it's folded over and like just base stitched closed. And you wonder, why didn't they cut this? Why is it? That was left on purpose because women would remake and remake their dresses. So if you were a young woman who just got married and you're taking your dresses in your trousseau, you can expect you're probably going to have a baby within the first year. First year, is probably what you're going to do. So you're not going to bring a bunch of fashionable dresses. Well, you'll have a couple nice ones, but the rest of them you're going to have to wear every day. And thinking ahead, women will oftentimes would make them to fit you, but they'd leave that extra fabric in case they had to remake the dress afterward. I mean, it's just a fact of life. People always think, oh, people were so little bitty and everything. No, people were normal size. Obviously, people are larger today because of our diet, but for the most part, people wore a lot of corsets. And just like we do, you gained weight and your body changes after you have a baby. A lot of girls got married young, 15 or 16. So if you think back, when I was 15 or 16, I was like 96 pounds, so in the same height. And you just have more of a girlish figure. And then once you have a baby, things shift around. Your bones, during birth, your bones stretch, your body changes. So they had to adapt fashion with little money, and you couldn't just go buy a bunch of new fabric. A lot of times you see things with coordinating or contrasting fabrics inserted in the bodice, and then to match it, they would put like a new ruffle or a panel around the bottom to tie it all together. So they found very innovative ways of adapting their fashion. And I'm pretty sure that's what happened with this one. It was probably a young, she had this dress prior to pregnancy, and then it happened, and then she let out, because these pin tucks go all the way around, and you can see all of the, I hope you can see it on the film, you can see where all the seam lines were carefully removed. And it goes all the way around the entire top of the skirt into the back. So obviously it was a tighter fit at one point, and then all of that was let out. The soiling is the heaviest where I would expect it. And I also think that this might not have been a dress from a hot climate. A lot of times down here in Texas, if the dress originated in the South, women tried to wear underarm protection, like a corset cover that would protect the fabric on the outside. Sometimes there were fabric underarm shields that they would wear, because in the hot climate you sweat a lot, and the salts from your sweat will basically deteriorate and eat away the fabric from the underarms. Because this is so nice and there is no deterioration of the fabric, I'm guessing this was not a dress from the southern climate. You find all sorts of fabrics, even wool, lined wool even, that have gone through both the lining and the outside fabric, and it's just shredded and eaten away because of perspiration. So this tells me it probably was not in a southern climate. I see the most soiling on the ends of the sleeves, the hems of the dress, and the back of the dress where you would be touching it to put it on. The heaviest staining is at the bottom, along the back, the hem, both the front and the bottom hems. Just where things would splash, and I don't see any real, there's a few very small holes, but no big, and I know when I wear long dresses, I often will get my heels caught in my hems, but nothing of the sort here. She must have been more graceful than I was. Do some small stains. There's a few holes. This is probably the largest. There's one, well, there's one right here. Just the fabric has sort of shredded. And there's one right there. So those will be a little dicey to fix without being totally noticeable. So the first thing I'm going to do is soak it, and we're going to try to get, you'll be surprised working with these old fabrics, first of all, how sturdy they are, and how they just stand up. And you'd be surprised how a lot of stuff can look. And I'll show you this picture right now of the Shirley Temple doll I got. And you noticed how her dress just looked like it was not salvageable, and then look at it, how I fixed it. It turned out amazing, and I was really pleased with it. A lot of times you just put these dresses in water and they come out and you're like, oh, it was just all dirt, and they come out almost pristine. It's just amazing. It's just how much dirt is collected on fabric over time. But I imagine that this is going to need a little soaking, a little work, some baking soda paste and stuff down here on the hems to get the staining out, and I may not get it all out. It may stay sort of this golden shade instead of white, but we're going to aim for white. What happens when we put it in the water, it could totally turn out white. So I'm ecstatic to work with this dress, and I just wanted to let you see what I bought, and I just love this dress, and I'll do updates, and eventually I hope to get this dress in a wearable condition, and when my daughter comes home from college, she'll get to put on this one. The last time we saw her was in a 1930s ball gown. This one will be a 1910. I would say day dress is what this is. Some people would call it walking dress or strolling dress. I would say this is a 1910 Edwardian cotton day dress. And I am really excited to be working with this dress, and I can't wait to keep you updated. Like it's gonna be white. Okay, round two. I usually change the water when I'm soaking vintage linens several times so they're not sitting in the dirty water. Okay, I've got the washing of it done, and it took 5 different rinses till water finally ran clean. It was really dirty, and I showed you that first when I was pouring off the first one, and it kept up till probably the second. The last two, it finally started. The final one was clear, but it was pretty dirty. Probably hadn't been washed since the last time it was worn. Came out pretty good in the wash. The holes that were there, I was afraid were going to get bigger, and they stayed pretty much the same. I did have a few pieces of lace that separated, easily repaired, so not a big deal. All the hooks and eyes stayed on that were there. There's one missing here. So usually if something's gonna fall off, it's usually the hooks and eyes, the thread, but they were fine. Did have a little bit of deterioration on this one sleeve, and if you remember, the sleeves are really dirty. We have some breakdown of the fabric right here. I will probably reinforce that from the inside. Because there's nothing to stitch it to, because the fabric itself has decayed and just didn't make it through the wash. I mean, when you wash it, you sort of have to weigh how much you spent for it, the rarity of the piece, all of those things you have to sort of weigh before you decide to embark on any kind of cleaning. You can see where the worst of the staining was down here at the hem. And that is a lot better. This is the real intense, and you can still see it is still stained. but I'm hoping that some of that, when it dries, will be less noticeable. It's wet. I've just taken it out and laid it flat on a towel right now. Over on this side actually fared better. Major stains like this one. Area right here was really stained heavily. So I'm really pleased with these stains here, but this one, and this one just did not come out. And overall, I'm pretty pleased with the amount of stains that came out of it. So I'm going to roll this up in the towel, and I'm going to let it dry in the towel, squeeze the water out of it. When you're dealing with fragile antique fabrics, you don't want to do any real rough wringing. So the best way is to lay it flat, and this is a beach towel, and then I'm going to roll it, and that will absorb the water, and then I'll unroll it, and then I'll do it again and do it again until it's basically dry. Because I don't want to hang this to dry on a hanger, because the weight of the wet, fragile fabric can just rip it. I mean, can just rip it apart. So you don't ever want, you want to lay it flat after you get as much water out of it as possible with a gentle rolling and pushing, not wringing, and then just let it air dry. And you see it is a lot wider than when we last looked at it. So we had these really prominent stains here, and we had all of the really bad staining on the, around where you would walk, around the hem. And then there was a really bad stain here. So I took a paste of baking soda and water, and I scrubbed the really bad stains, and I scrubbed all along the ends where you walk. And then I rinsed it and I let it dry. Then it was a little better. I came back. There was still a lot of significant staining on the skirt and on those sleeves. So the next thing I did was I did some lemon juice and vinegar and baking soda and paste, and I let it sit on there for a little while, and then I again rubbed it and treated it and let it dry. And so the final thing, which took a huge risk, but I did a very, very diluted bit of bleach in water. I put it in for, it probably was just a minute. It wasn't very long. I kept my eyes on the finer bits, which was the lace, which tends to deteriorate in bleach. I had no deterioration, no further widening of any holes, and I kept this little bit up above the water so I could watch it. As I saw it fade, when I saw it got to about this right here, I was like, okay, that's good. And I pulled it out, and I rinsed and rinsed and rinsed, got all the bleach water out of it, and now I'm going to let it dry again. Till just that 1 minute. There's still a little bit of staining because I didn't leave it in long at all. It did whiten it up really quick and significantly. There's still going to be some darkening on this sleeve, and the two prominent stains are still basically there, but they are very much lighter, and a lot of that dirt and staining that was on the around where you would walk is just gone. So I'm really pleased. So we're going to let that dry, and then we're going to iron it. And this is what the dress looks like after I got it all ironed, and you can see it's really looking nice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a center panel underneath this. That'll take care of all of these holes in the front. I have put in some small patches that I'm going to do very delicately around, just to keep that, since they're like a separation, to keep that from doing anything further. I'm going to reinforce on the inside the bands around here. I'm not going to take these off. I'm just going to do it all on the inside, just to sort of, the white will hide the deterioration and it'll keep it from getting worse. I'm going to fix the lace up there. But other than that, I've decided I'm not going to fix. This one I'm still out about. I just don't see a way to, I want to do as minimal harm as possible to the dress. So I'm trying to do very minimal repairs and just keep things that are bad from getting worse. I really don't know what I might do about this. We're going to get those repairs done, and so this video has been the original state of it, the cleaning of it, and sort of the forerunning what's to come. So thank you for joining us so far on this journey, and it is turning out to be really beautiful, and I can't wait to see it on my daughter, and it's going to look lovely. So this is Angie from Canterbury Trails Farm. Thanks for joining us. Bye.